Hey, what's going on, everyone? Astrology Eric Rosen here, and welcome to Celestial Conversations from Chaos to Clarity. This is the weekly horoscope that I do to help you innovate and graduate through these rocky changes that we're going through in this reality to, get over the pitfalls, the stresses, the shadow work of things, to rise above the storm, if you will. This is a horoscope that is going to run from Wednesday, April 9th of 2025, of course. We're cruising through 2025 until the 16th, Tuesday of April. So before we get into what's going on with this week's astrology, I do want to say, if you want to get on the calendar for an astrology reading, you can click on that link down below to book a reading. It's both the type of astrology that guides you through the real-time stuff, the real-time guidance of how to help you forward in life. I'd say especially right now, it's probably looking at what needs to crumble and to start focusing and shifting our lives into now to get out of stuck rhythms and fears and traditions that aren't working, to get us into more of a sustainable progression of how we pretty much do everything in life. That's a lot of what I'm going to be talking about with this astrology this week. Of course, if you just wanted more of a natal chart flavor, you're just wanting to learn more about just your basic natal chart characteristics, that same link that'll be down below somewhere to book that reading. And of course, if you want more of the budgetary DIY route to study your natal chart, there's a link down below for that natal chart ebook. And I do want to say this week that we're on the precipice of a lot of change with this astrology. This is almost like what I would describe as graduation for a lot of light workers, where it's almost like, okay, you get the diploma and it's time to go create, but then there's no, you could say, job offers. And so it's like, well, there's no job offers, there's no job openings. So what do you do? And it's like, well, maybe you become an entrepreneur, a creative, a solopreneur. I think that's how we have to start looking at our lives, whether you identify as a light worker or just someone in general. This speaks to a lot of personal social responsibility. I think it's a social responsibility to read the writing on the wall of how much is about to really change in this world, as well as not just like waiting to see where we land, because that's not really personal social responsibility. Reading the writing on the wall goes, okay, let me check in with my intuition, my spirit guides, and play some chess a little bit and know that it's all going to be okay. Like, everything is going to, I truly believe, work out fine. But if you're wanting to accelerate your spiritual growth, or you're wanting to manifest and co-create in this reality and get ahead, and not in like a I'm gonna win keeping up with the Joneses type way, but more in like you have dreams, you have ambitions, you came here to create, and you don't want to just be stuck in your own personal matrix like it's the Truman Show anymore, trying to find the wall, the edge of that fake sea, and to get out. Then this is the horoscope to pay attention to see what changes need to be made. And I'm going to be completely real. It's not about doing endless amounts of meditation and shadow work. It's actual real boots on the ground, like gearing up for what to focus on in your life that is putting stock into your unique skill set to build, that involves people and real world solutions, that you could say it's like coming up with the solution to the problem before the problem becomes popular. And that AI and tech is going to be a huge part of this, that this world is about to change forever. So with that leading off, of course we are in, easy to follow up, right? We are in, of course, Aries season. We are going to be seeing that sun go through those final degrees of Aries starting this week. We're not going to transition fully into Taurus. That won't happen until the 19th. So this horoscope's only going through the 16th. But we do start off with that sun reaching 20 degrees of Aries. And so there's a heightened intensity to this to this Aries energy, especially because it is going to cross Chiron at 22, 23 degrees of Aries, and that's going to be in opposition to the moon, which of course is a full moon. We're going to have a full moon in Libra this week that happens on the 12th, on the same day that Venus goes direct in Pisces, which Venus is the ruler of Libra. So there's a lot to unpack here. But what I do want to say, just to start off with some basics, is that we can either feel our way forward or we can fall forward. And none of those is wrong this week. It's not so much about going fast, going slow. This is really about throwing out the rule book and just having the feedback in our own reality and seeing if it's not working and it needs constant stress and fixing, or if it's affecting your health, you're feeling wounded, you're feeling hurt, probably not going to come up with the world's greatest puzzle and become the world's greatest detective like Batman or something, solving multiple crimes in life, when really the only crime would be to violate our own blueprint of our human design and our intuition, and to actually keep using the mind and the ego to create some construct in reality, to create a handrail on a foundation that's tearing away at the fabric of this very reality that we are heading into an entirely new civilization. I would really think of this as like, yeah, it's AI, but it's also the instability financially. You've got Venus that is, of course, going direct, but it's going to be on Saturn for a few more weeks. And so there's a lot of restriction when it comes to money, finance, of course, always name relationships and projects too, but it's forcing us to take a really deep look at what matters, like what we really value, like a truly humble, spiritual, karmic legacy type thing. And so that could literally be going into the impact of your relationships with the time that you have available here on Earth, like your family, kids. Like we did just come off of that trine that Mars was making to Saturn, but Saturn is now going to be trined by Mercury that's now direct in Pisces and the North Node. So it is asking us to take a really intense Pisces, deep emotional look at what's going on in the foundation. Are we really paying attention to what is really just important, that's actually going to be good for the long haul, good for not just the long haul of our personal selves, but even as the leadership aspect that we bring to the foundation, the home life, the family life, and thinking about this in terms of transcending just the day-to-day duties of managing the home life, managing responsibilities, that it's so much more than that. It's the essence that we bring to that. So we can use that Saturn Venus as a motivating factor of what's important, to remain like really grateful, but at the same time seeing all the possibilities of the things that we could be creating with that sextile between Saturn in Pisces to Uranus and Taurus that continues and will continue through a lot of this year. And so I don't think this is so much of a week with the South Node in Virgo, where that moon is going to cross it and oppose all this Pisces energy, about editing the reality or making like certain tweaks. It's not about so much like fixing things. I think this is really going to be more about fresh approaches to how we're creating our reality. And I don't have a human formula for the masses, so to speak, and not to offend, but the muggles of the world that aren't at least like dipping their toe in the water in the Hogwarts school of fucking spiritual mystery of how this universe works and energy, and just an understanding that reality does tend to reflect where we're vibrating at. And so upgrading our consciousness and feeling our way forward this week, instead of trying to fix it, falling forward, fumbling, stressed out, is going to look like really being okay with the letting go process, that we're continuing to be in this deep clearing out, letting go of an old reality that wasn't really working, that was breaking down inside of us. And maybe it was the dangling carrot effect that we've been experiencing since the 50s of if you work hard and you build the white picket fence, you'll get there. And that even as people's different value systems sprouted into different ways, that having a mortgage and a family or the 401k, how's that going? It's like that they went a different way, but Saturn's still here making this sextile and to Uranus, going like, yeah, but was the approach of the consciousness the same way, even if the value system changed? And I think that's what's kind of getting in our faces this week, is like, we can all be creating and building different things and have different dreams, but until the consciousness and the energy truly matches it, that we're doing our grief work, our release work, that can be at a very ancestral level with that trine between Mars and Mercury and that North Node that I think got kicked off when Saturn was trining it, that it's like we are going through a massive karmic release. This is an exodus of lost souls, to be completely real with you. Like this is a period that we're entering into where it's like, if you're lost as a soul and you don't know where you belong, and it doesn't mean like you're lost, like you're drunk, even though I can feel that way, and you don't know what room you're in. I literally saw a drunk guy that, I don't know if he was homeless or what, but he was like literally getting walked from the public like train bus stop across the street just to like get off the property, and he just was stumbling and just had to just hang onto a pole when he got across. Of course I felt terrible for him, but it's like it's kind of like that, like where we're not so inebriated dimensionally, energetically, that just because it's tough to know where the world is going, that we've lost touch with ourselves, because that means that we've lost touch with source, and it's up to us to purge our fears, our demons, our grief, the past, just all these things that hold us back. Like, I want to grab the camera here and be like, hey, like, don't wait for the world, the reality, society to stabilize, to give you safety, to subsidize safety outside of you in your central nervous system. It's not coming. The reason I say it's going to be okay is because the world's not gonna go into some cataclysm, far from it. However, we're talking about not just like being okay and being, like a baby that gets swallowed by the world anymore, and that there's a place for everyone to be taken care of. We're talking about thriving, rising up, leadership, creation. And it's okay if you want to take a seat at the back and just kind of be on the sidelines. There's no shame in that. But speaking to the creatives, the entrepreneurs, the artists, this to me is the way forward. I think that a lot of this Sun Chiron conjunction that's going to oppose this moon in Libra ask us to kind of think like an artist, think like blank canvas. Like, okay, how are we going to create our dreams? How are we going to create money? How are we going to create with our unique skill set and to do a better, more, you could say somewhat efficient job with it, but I think it's more the spiritual efficiency of where the energy feels more in flow. And there's still going to be the human nature to get stuck, and this is definitely not about getting it perfect. It's still gonna feel rough and highs and lows and edges at times, but it's tough though. If South Node Virgo with Sun on Chiron, and a lot of astrologers, and I'm one of them, that thinks that Chiron definitely influences Virgo as its rulership, and that Libra moon opposing that Sun Chiron, that if it feels like a life that you just really don't like, and you don't like going to your job or to your work, or you're just getting through it or just checking boxes, that's a hard one. I'd say gratitude is always going to be it reminds me of when there's just a little bit of air at the top of drowning, and you can just be at the ceiling, but just getting a little bit of air. Gratitude can get us through that. But I think disinfecting the wounds that hold us back, of thinking that we're not more capable of creating a reality, and truly believing in ourselves and believing that the world can shift into a place that is more freedom oriented. I think that's what we have to really be focusing on this week. Jupiter in Gemini is making what's called a sesquiquadrant angle, which is kind of like a square, it's a challenge point over to Pluto in Aquarius. And so it's almost like our thinking, our minds, our communication, how we interface with the world, that's all very much changing. It's not about, gotta like figure out and go to Al Jazeera and sit there for 24/7 and figure out all the puzzles of conspiracies and what's going on in the world. I think that's a rabbit hole with a trap at the end of it. I think it's more so about seeing that communication, the way that we think and understand and view the world, is changing big time. And I think this is kind of like the dynamite charges a little bit of AI coming, right? Because AI changes how we think, communicate, interface, see, view, believe, experience the world. Like it's unprecedented, what we're going through, at least in our modern era of things. And we're not going to be able to understand it fully this week. I mean, Mercury's still going to be, even though it's direct now, it's going to be in Pisces this whole week. And so it's not going to go into Aries on the 16th, right before we go into Taurus season. So a lot of this really is the getting ready to get ready to release the past. If you feel like you're in fear, and that's okay, spend as much time as you need there. But it's also taking the opportunities to go deep into that eye of the needle moment where just like lightning strikes, and it's just like you can make this like quantum shift within yourself where any unbecoming negative thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, ego, criticism, like making people wrong, judgment, like if you get an opportunity to do that, I would dive on it like it's a grenade that you're martyring and protecting people from, but it's not actually a grenade. It's just your ego thinks it's that way. Because as uncomfortable as some of this astrology can be for the average person, it can feel like we want to push the pain onto someone else. We push it onto a spouse, a relationship. We want to hide from the world. Like we all have our own coping mechanisms of how we deal with stress. We can get anxious attached, but then get upset when we're not getting fed what we want from the attachment. We can be anxious avoidant, where we pull the covers over the head, but then there's no true reset. I know that might be kind of harsh, but it's really just the divine pressure for us to become better creators, to roll with the punches of the triggers that will continue to definitely come up this week, and to go, it's going to show up in relationships a lot. It's going to show up in money a lot, but we can find balance. We can find beauty by actually not identifying with our ego wounds, because I think the Sun Chiron and the Moon in Libra is going to be a bit like, it can feel like our own ego pulling us over like it's a cop, but then like making up some fake story about a violation of a law of why it pulled us over. And it's like, that's not a real rule. Like we don't have to make these matrix ego rules anymore of it like being wrong. And it's not to create a spiritual bypass of things. Saturn will not let that happen, but it is kind of like this, hey, it's not about fine tuning the reality and getting it like perfect, and then all of a sudden life is going to be stress-free and flow. We're all perfect, pure spiritual vessels. It's more so like looking at those bigger macro opportunities for bravery, for stewardship, right? Like honoring what impact is this having on me, family, my community, the future generations, especially like where our mood is at, where our vibration is at. Just remembering like these things are critical, that where our mood is at, where our attitude is at, our outlook is at, and taking care of just the basic things that don't feel like a wild goose chase is going to take us so much further than being a mad scientist trying to, use the perfect law of the universe or perfect version of alchemy or something like that. That if it's already well, if I do this, then this will happen. It's already a slippery slope. It's more so like hey, this is what I feel called to do. Part of the feeling forward piece, or falling forward too, is this Neptune that is in Aries during this Aries season. And we are going to see the moon, in addition to opposing all that Pisces energy, to leading up to the full moon, reflecting the stresses and the problems in life that maybe we're overly identifying with. That moon's also going to go through Scorpio and trine over to all the Pisces energy, which I like, because I think that it's going to show us like, hey, like if your emotions are not really flowing in the alignment with both the release of what needs to just be let go of, and it's going to be so unique and different for every person. It is Saturn making a sextile over to Uranus, but it's like that letting go. Like, hey, do you have an idea or concept of a dream? Because there are a lot of openings, there are a lot of opportunities to go forward, but it's not so much about getting lost in the daydreaming of that. I think it is way more about still, until Venus goes, well, Venus is going direct on the 12th, but I think really I would give it until the 16th, until Mercury is in Aries. And then I would just wait those few more days to just like get to Taurus season, like for the creation of the actual true physical understanding of going, okay, yeah, the reality is changing, but like, what are we actually creating in it? I think this is where we're not meant to just like wait or keep doing the same thing over and over again. Honestly, if anything, I would be doing this as like a light research week, but I think the research starts with the research of the soul, like what are we still holding on to? What are we still afraid of? And then if we get that intuitive hit to take action on something that goes beyond just the scope of taking care of this very spiritual, humbling reality, like say it's like researching how to start using AI more in our life, which I highly recommend, and start to apply that, then it's like go for that. But even that's not going to stick. That's like pinning the tail on the donkey, and it's going to create more frustration if we're still not taking care of the number one thing, which is this updated avatar identity that isn't going to come from mirror work. It's not going to come from, pepping ourselves up in words of affirmation. It's going to be the soul gnawing level of like, what is it that we are just so afraid to surrender and like let go of, and like lose a sense of our identity. And so that identity is not just the self, it's the way that we've been identifying with the world, how we see the world. Like it's deep. Like this is where only a very few people will go, yeah, I see it, I feel it, the writing's on the wall. And so like, let's go be that different person, and like, don't wait for everyone to catch up. Like, don't, if your family, your community, if they feel like they're not vibing and they feel like, why are you doing something that's unique and weird and innovative? It's not the same traditions of whether it's like going to your 9 to 5 that you don't like, or doing the perfect daily exercise routine or meal preps, or just, all the silly South Node Virgo stuff. Just fruitless conversations with people that are actually stressful and aren't actually like changing anything. It's just like talk, that's okay. Like be okay with like feeling like that weird wounded Chiron warrior, that feels isolated and alone during this full moon. Because that's what's going to suck, is like some of this is going to be a pretty dark purge coming. and the true release of relationships that are just not on the same time zone, timeline. Like the time zone literally is dimensionally. Like a relationship with someone doing the 3D 9 to 5 thing, and then someone doing like magic 5D spiritual work, it's going to get so stressful. And so I think it's about extending the olive branch, the invitations and those reminders, to the relationships. It's not just about like, got to get the knife out in Aries and cut it off, cut the rope and like let someone fall down, from the positioning of the relationship and not be helpful, be of selfless service. But I do think that there is something to say about like, hey, like here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm being guided. I need to be that guide that is Chiron, the wounded healer, and we all have to guide our lives forward. And that moon in Libra is saying like, hey, the peace comes if we're in an emotional understanding and having conversations of like the directions that the relationships are going in. And this is every relationship is on the table this week. And I know you're already feeling it, but like now this is where like it gets more real, where we all have to accept that we're not meant to stay connected to every partnership that's been on a long journey. And the ones that make the cut are the ones that we almost kind of have to energetically like let go of like any, you could say, attachment style that's not fucking secure in ourselves, that goes, yeah, I'm training as a Jedi and I'm secure in myself and where I'm going. And, that's what's weird is like, we just have to start joining forces more in a magnetism way and not a force way with partnerships that are doing the same thing. Because that law of attraction element like is good because we don't really have time to figure out every single person's belief systems with that Ceci quadrant between Jupiter and Pluto and have all those, just conversations. It would be like an endless, interview process, like auditioning every person in our lives. So we just have to authentically be ourselves and to tune in to what that is and that direction that we're going. And it's okay to collect the ideas of what we want to build physically and what we're doing next, but it's not about trying to figure out all the crazy details of how's it going to work. I really don't think we're going to have an understanding and be able to ground into it till Taurus season. And so this has been about setting the stage for ourselves, for the relationships, for some really deep level healing personally, relationships, the world, our souls, our karmic track records, everything. We have to deal with that stuff first before we start moving on to the bigger, higher level creations. And so we can, muse on these things, but I think it's more about like, as a reward system, like, cool, you did your homework and you're chilling. It's like, well, okay, you don't want to go back to the old way of doing reality, which, how does that look? I mean, for some people, it's like, well, I have a glass of wine or I watch this TV show, but, none of that was intuitively guided to actually do. It could be like, well, I go do this thing when I'm caught up, and it's like, maybe it's using the free time to more reflect on the dream and the intuition of the possibilities and seeing like what's true for seeing these concepts going forward. But we're not going to know it till we know it fully. And so we're getting there. We're getting to the top of the roller coaster. And, that's the thing is like, if you're safe, you're secure in yourself, you're secure in your seat, when we get that top part of the roller coaster where the roller coaster really, really starts, but then like goes down that first hill, that first drop, and that craziness in Taurus season, with this being the last full Taurus season that we're going to have with Uranus, we'll get about a week of it next year, but Uranus will move out of Gemini before the sun catches up to it in Taurus. And so like, this is it. Like, this is the crescendo moment for the expression of your skills, your abilities, what you can create in this world, all the openings that are being created by systems shifting and changing. And so part of that Sassy Quadrant with Jupiter and Pluto too is a reminder of like, hey, it's way too overwhelming, too much chaos, too much fear. If you look too much to what's going on in the world, it's like, feel into what is going on in the world. Get a pulse on it, keep a pulse on it, like become the intuitive person that Neptune in Aries is asking us to be, and let that inform the facts and the understanding of what's going on, of what we're capable of and not capable of right now. You know, like some of those limitations, because remember, Jupiter and Gemini is like at fall, because it's like, well, I want to go expand, but I got to deal with the circumstances. I got to deal with the facts of just the reality of like what things really are. And so that can be humbling. But all in all, I think this is a week to, you know, we still got to show up. We still got to, you know, take action. It's not about, like I said, this like, do I just do it all and get it all done and force and push and slay the day and just, you know, crush it? You could do that, but the truth is that if it feels euphoric, if it feels positive, then great. You've designed a life for yourself that is broken free from the Truman Show, the Matrix, and you're just stacking, you know, more fucking flapjacks onto improving life, you know, for the possibilities that are coming. But if you do it and you feel like, gosh, I don't know how I can get through another week, well, it's probably time to slow down and look more at what needs to be released and deal with the past historical track record, the subconscious beliefs that got us there, the raw acceptance of the choices, of the karma that we've made. I would say it's even the influences of every program at every level. It could be the ancestors that we have in our family lineages that are unhealed, that say it's not safe to go live in that new reality. Like stay with what you know. It's like, you know, it'd be like the movie, what was that movie, Coyote Ugly? It's like, Violet, no, stay home. Don't go to New York and, you know, explore your passion and, you know, your songwriting and, you know, find your way or whatever she was going to do there, right? Gosh, that movie is a little dated now, but it is one of these things where I don't think we're going to get like some come to Jesus. It all makes sense. I see it all clearly. I know exactly what's going to happen this week and what to do. It's more so about that humble, spiritual, you know, way of living and, you know, understanding like, do we know how to innovate? Do we know how to be intentional? Like, do we know how to focus spiritually on the energy of consciousness, embody a lot of that intuitive human design piece, and actually go, okay, well, I'm going to get what I get based upon the vibration and the law of karma, the law of attraction, blah, 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 all these things. So it helps to update and reflect on like who we are becoming. But I'd say, again, it's not so much about the ego, like I am this thing. It's more so like I'm surrendering, I'm shedding the layers. This is the thing that I'm becoming just because we're breaking out of these Russian doll-like shells. Not to use like a collective buzzword right now, but with Russia, but it's like, in order to be more vulnerable, because this full moon energy, Sun, Chiron, opposing the full moon, right? It is asking for us to be vulnerable and to start to have more conversations with each other and be like, yeah, you know, like actually I'm not feeling at peace. Actually, I'm not feeling harmonious. Actually, it's not going well in my relationship. Or just, you know, talking and saying what is going on, if it is like going well. And kind of, I think it's talking more about those things too. I mean, like, hey, like, look, here's the deal. Like, it could be like, because I'm, you know, a lot of this astrology is breaking old routines and shit. So it could be like, hey, I get up, I meditate, and then I just find intuitively in that meditation what's in store for my day of it could be like an intuitive power list of sorts of like, what's going to be the brave thing that actually changes my life and allows me to vibrate, and then going, okay, cool, like that's the thing. But then it's not about trying to be the perfectionist and just going through those motions, because we can do that. But the dimensional North Node and Pisces understanding, and it's a lot of Pisces, but in order to really have that true spiritual connection and to have Saturn and Venus helping us ground, and even Mercury this week, to understand, like, to make sure that we're not paving a path of instantaneous enlightenment or something that's going to get us like something that we're wanting, that's very flashy and shiny, that we're not creating a dead end because it's like, that reality's ending. That shiny object really was an illusion. It really wasn't there. That we're actually creating more basic, stable, foundational structures in our life of like, yeah, sure am glad that I paid attention to what was going on in the world, and not just waiting for the stocks to go back up or crypto to go back up, or for my relationship to go back up, or for this resource that I was waiting on to come in the mail to come back up. The way through this is about our own creativity. And I've been saying that since 2018, that that's the way forward, like it really is about, as I've been saying, that the only safe investment left on the planet is in ourselves. And so investing in ourselves, our healing, who we're becoming, that skill set, how that connects us to people, that's how we create. And why was I saying that? Because I'm an astrologer. I saw this coming, the stuff with the economics of things. And, I know some people will always be like, cash is king, or, there's real estate or whatever, but it's like, it's bigger than that. Because think about it, right? Like, think about like structures and homes. We haven't seen probably the tech come out yet, the AI tech type stuff that will really upgrade like domains, living locations, that sort of thing. But even also the banking system too, with the economics of mortgages and stuff. How's that all going to go if we don't actually own the structure? If the bank owns it, then who does that go to? So it's not creating a doomsday thing, but it's an understanding that even that is shaky. Even owning property is kind of like a, there's a lot, right? Properties are still connected to city plumbing, right? The water systems, the electrical grids, the gas, like all that. Like, there's so much like intertwinement in the structures in these systems that, again, I don't think it's going to go poor. It's not going to be like the Joker in The Dark Knight or something, like, blowing up fucking hospitals and, or it was the first Batman movie with Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale. It was like they were pouring stuff in the water system. Any scares, like, I think we get through it. We're a resilient race, and I'm not predicting that stuff this week. But what I am saying is I'm just giving examples of like, it's not the doomsday stuff, but it's more so like I don't think that we can fake this spiritual ascension process that we're going on. That it's not like it's the hard cutoff that someone's better if they're being spiritual, or that people that are not really living a life of conscious co-creation or connected to God are somehow gonna like not be okay this week. But it really does go back to like, who's gonna create and exceed the expectations of the status quo. Because Uranus at the end of Taurus back in the 30s and the Great Depression, it very much brought up that like there was only like a very few select like persons, peoples, families, groups of people that like actually came out on top, from that type of crisis. And so you could call this the crisis in the world and society of expectations of things always going the way that they always have. And so it's those that read the writing on the wall and are flexible, know how to like pivot with the uncertainty of things, but you get the spidey sense like going off, you get the light bulb moment, the intuition before it happens, and like you don't wait. That's the sort of thing that leads people to fruition. And it's not even like a lottery ticket moment too. Like that's the crazy thing. It's not going to be like, yeah, I made this one move and this one investment and like now I'm rich and I'm ahead and I'm safe and I'm, I'm above the proverbial flood, so to speak. It's more so about having to continuously make those moves to kind of, not in a bad way, like that it's usually used, this metaphor, but snake our way through to fruition. It's you're a snake Chinese zodiac. And so, people with 9-to-5 jobs, people with money in stocks, people depending on crypto investments, people just basically depending on anything outside of them that's not an extension of their own creative genius, that it's like a willingness to upgrade that skill set and see like what are the new ways to yield that. Like I'm looking at the ways that I'm integrating AI into my business, not only through astrology, but just through the things that I do, and that's something I have to continue to get on top of too, right? Like we're all in this kind of like swaying Noah's Ark boat together, where the swaying, is the constantly updating headlines. Like it's every day, and it's sometimes multiple times a day of news around things going on politically, things going on economically, things going on with the healthcare system. And for me, like, I just think that I think it's a waste, that there's so much potential that we have to create right now for us to use our energy and attention span focused on the gossip of the train wrecks, which consequently, the train wreck of it really is just the identification of saying it's a train wreck because it went off the rails, when it's like the astrology was showing that we're on the rails of a spiritual evolution that's historical, that we've never seen, like we're on the rails for that. We're just off the rails for the old way of like how things have been going. And I really truly believe these next few months, this is us stepping into, and it's here, it's the greatest openings in history, for opportunities of creating. And I use the word creation loosely because that can be, if you're an artist, an entrepreneur, like it could be in business. It could be, again, I mentioned identifying a solution to a problem before it becomes like a manic episode, like in the collective. The creation is just essentially going, okay, well, there's things destructing. And so creation is build on top of what's working. So it's okay to like honor traditions if they're still working, but to innovate and build on top of them. That's what Pluto and Aquarius is. And so that Sesi quadrant to Jupiter is like saying like, hey, the writing is blown up on the wall. You see this changing. You feel this call. You understand it. Like don't wait or don't sleep on it and get a rude wake-up call. That it is this opportunity to go, like, even if we just like see all this stuff and it overwhelms us and it's like, fuck it, I just need to take a smoke break, or I just need to do that. But it's like that stress, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the roller coaster is just going to be waiting for us. And so we really have to be on point, with all this energy, not like some perfect, hyper vigilant, stressed out, tearing our hair out, saying like, gosh, I just can't keep up with this. And what if it's not about keeping up with it? What if it's just about letting go of what cannot be like resurrected in our lives, that maybe at some point had utility and value in it, and go, well, let me just put my energy into innovating and going in this new direction that's around how we approach our lifestyle, or anything with job, business, money stuff, family stuff, I promise you that you will find your energy going up, and you will find it easier to focus and more exciting if you start looking at that as that is the way through this. But it's such a mind fuck because it can feel like not a dead end, but more so just like moving through life like fucking molasses, doing the same things over and over again with no change, versus like the hyper speed that we can start to accelerate our understanding of where this reality is going simply by just starting to do more of the things that we're feeling called to do or that we're curious about. And it's curiosity too that is sustainable. It's curiosity that goes, I'm curious about learning about this thing or how I can do this in my life so that I can fucking apply it in a magical way that's going to change my life and my world. Not the curiosity of, ooh, what's this? Like monkey mind, like stimulus, because that's just being in a more of a happy-go-lucky, type of vibe of taking in information and media and still kind of just like arms crossed, like waiting on the sideline, but being excited about it. And so this is why I've been saying for years, like, we just really have underestimated our power and our strength as individuals and as a collective. And it's not about waiting for the world to give us permission. Like, we're the creators. We're authoring our own sense of independence in our families, our communities, our collective, by how we're showing up in every moment, vibrationally, in the actions that were taken from there. And so very practically speaking this week, like the rising above the chaos and the storm is like, I would get on top of the AI stuff now and see it just as a tool. I would generate a list of like, what is your most unique skills, and start building with that now. But I'd say it's more like building it in the background of the concept of the identity, that how you're going to be, the actions that you'll take, like kind of having the framework understanding before you actually build it. And then any fears, anxieties, like stresses that are coming up, or it could also be things like lack of gratitude. It could be frustration, right? Just anything that takes us down. It's immediately going, okay, let me stop being a fuckhead for a second. I mean, really, truly, though, we all deserve a lot of empathy and compassion, right now. And so it's not about getting hung up on like the mind sussing out like what's not working, and like it's more so just like when we see ourselves like doing these things and being in these places, that it's magically shifting it by going, well, let me focus on what I can be doing and creating. And it's not about right or wrong or fast or slow. It's more so like, do I have a pulse? Do I feel a sense of magical energy behind this? Like, we really can start to lift ourselves up this week, especially like with Venus going direct on Saturn. So it could feel heavy, a lot of things of the physical, but it's subconscious. But there's so many avenues to shift out of that and actually use that to our advantage of going, I've got the self-worth, the skills, like I know the relationships, I know people, like there are multiple positive quality avenues to get unstuck from whatever's feeling unstuck, whether that's just like mentally, emotionally, financially. Like, there's nothing in the astrology that says that like we shouldn't be able to like just meet our basic needs. It's more so just like the humbling ourselves of like, yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone can just create these expectations that right now is the time for prosperity and abundance, like from a place of like ego identification. It would be more so about receiving the divine gifts just from being in such a holy, high vibrational expression of being a healed being and open to receiving and leaning into that void of like not being a busy body and not always going and trying to do the same traditions over and over and over again. So it's like, if you're healing, you're releasing the past, you're leaning into like where things are going and taking those actions and thinking about where things are going, but not in a stressed out, freaked out place. Then it's like, we all still get to relax. That's what this full moon reminds us. It's like, hey, like if you can't relax and find peace, that's your ego. That's your ego's wounds like running amok, or, you know, because of the early energy in the zodiac of Aries, it could be like inner child stuff, like perpetual, just like inner child symptoms, you know, of just tantrums and stuff. And with Venus going direct and being the ruler, I mean, we're starting to integrate this week everything that we've been learning about our projects, our relationships, our money stuff, especially when it comes to the dream, the hope, but also what's had to be released and let go of fully and put to bed, the directions that we actually want to like move forward with these things, because the Venus retrograde started in Aries. And so you can look at the past, go back 40 days, like from the 12th, and it's like kind of just, maybe it's like you look at the calendar or look at what you post on social media, what was going on, and just kind of a quick rundown of going, okay, well, that was the updated subconscious, conscious understanding of things. And then going, okay, like, is those understandings like actually like working? And if it's not working, then you let that go. And you go, okay, well, this is the new approach. Like, this is what has actually worked. And it might actually be simple, where it's just like, I've said this before, these recent horoscopes, like live and let live, like just like let people be people and don't freak out, and just be you and do your best and show up. But this Venus going direct also being that ruler of Libra, I think we can get some beautiful inspiration, a rejuvenation this week of the possibilities of what we can create that include partnerships. So it is about keeping the dream alive and seeing that there is always like an exit strategy, that there is a way out of the mundane, stuck routines. And some of it is a deep level of responsibility that we came here as a soul to experience, the trial and error of creation, those trials and tribulations on every level, from the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. But then going, okay, well, it's going to be a divine spiritual connection and deep healing and release that puts us at least in a position to thrive during times where it can feel like it's maybe not able to thrive. So I really do think that being spiritual and doing the healing work is number one. Like, that's what a lot of this time was about, where it's like, hey, y'all can't keep just being mean to each other and critical and, just consumer culture, right? Because that's usually an adversary to living spiritually. It's more so like the spiritual value that the Saturn sextile to Uranus brings up, of going like, we can all be prosperous, but if it doesn't have a spiritual value, like Saturn's gonna like show us that we can have it, but if it's not exciting, if it doesn't make you feel good, worthy, connected to the best of you, to your relationships, to just the beauty of getting to exist in this reality, it's like, what do you need it for? It's not about like purging it. It's more so just like, okay, well, this is in my life, but if it's not like making it better, some of it can be the transformational element of going, well, how do I take this thing and actually use it to make my life better? Some of the best advice that I think that I heard from my original astrology mentor, David Palmer, the Leo King, was like, with the way that the financial systems are, like, and then moving into AI, maybe like take some of that money instead of sitting on that as your safety cushion and invest it into something that allows you to actually create beautiful things that go into this new reality. So, money, for example, right? Like if it's not bringing you the best of you, like give it to me. No, I'm just kidding, but give it to charity. But in seriousness, it's like, we have to look at these things and look at the writing on the wall and go, okay, like, how do we just stay ahead of the curve and put ourselves in positions that we can be a spiritual vessel of creation that adapt to the shifts that are just happening? Because worst case scenario, say we went through a financial collapse, right? If the value system was all about money and the identification of worth was through the money that was made, like where does that leave a soul and their identity, and how do you recover from that? And so a lot of this astrology is more about who do you know and connect with, but on a deeply selfless service, spiritual, vibrational way of connections and people that you love and feel safe and secure around. And it's going to bring up trust stuff this week, like for people that if they try to, like, say you find like that it's a relationship that's not really a value, it's not really working, it's not really going in the same direction. That moon moving through through Scorpio this week is going to remind us, like, if it's not trustworthy, do you want to invest in it any further? And this could even be just investments, financially too, where we're going to be reminded where it's like, you can have this beautiful, harmonious dream that your investments, that everything, it's all going to be okay. And I think that there's a part of it that will be, but I think it's also kind of like this really foggy sort of acceptance of like going like, okay, like, what are we actually invested in this reality, and going, is the integrity of the spiritual value actually there? Because I feel like it could be soul crushing if we keep investing and doubling down on things that are actually wrapping up and ending. And everyone's going to have space to keep doing that. I don't think, we're going to go through like a radical shift here immediately, but I do think like this is the front wave of like the floodgates opening for positive things for the people tracking what's really going on in the world and the collective, and adapting to that. And so it's not about rushing to make something happen physically. It's more about, do you understand your place in this world and playing that chess match, and to remember that the healing and the adaptation to where things are going and getting those mental philosophical understandings is going to help kind of like prepare, it's like, think of it as like a gentle boot camp where parts can feel like not gentle, but it's like, you don't just throw someone on the battlefield, right? Like you take them through training, you take them through that. And like, why is part of that? Well, part of it's to teach and to understand how things work, but some of it's also to get used to the simulation of things in the central nervous system, so there's not like complete shock and dysregulation of the central nervous system when it goes down. And so we could start to do that and go, well, there's uncertainty anyway, this is all changing, there's anxiety, there's fear, so why don't I like quell the fear by giving it the medicine of looking at what is it that I need to be looking at and doing right now that actually quenches the thirst of that fear, not to just like numb it, because that would be just completely ridiculous right now. Like drugs, alcohol, escapism, just please don't do that. But it's like, it's the shifting into the mindset of like, oh, okay, like I feel better now because I'm accepting and I'm going with the times, I'm going with the flow. And so even though I can't say that I'm perfectly safe and secure and that we're all at the mercy of all the shifts that are happening, that I feel better because I'm understanding and I'm pivoting, and it's letting it be in our being in this understanding to regulate our central nervous system through that knowledge and going, okay, and when the time comes, when the intuition hits, I'd say especially during Taurus season, it's like time to start making more moves that are more for our longer term, for stability. That's the time to fucking do it, you know? And so right now, it's a very potent reconnaissance. And so I hope this helps, but it's like people, it's going to be unique to everyone's chart, to your sign, like what you're going through, to your own value systems, but no one is immune to any of this stuff. Like no one can stay the same and be a dinosaur, you know, to be a fossil, like during these times, because it's not fun, you know. My guys are just reminding me, it's like they're showing me throughout history, like it's never fun to feel like the person that kind of like waited too long to change and transform and shift when civilization and societies are like the tectonic plates are shifting. It's like it's always better to be the brave soul, like fortune favors the bold, but it's not some crazy like Wolf of Wall Street risk. Like that to me would be the dumbest thing to do right now, is to think that you can be that person in any capacity, in any way, shape, or form of like getting rich during this time. It's more about securing the future and the foundation by paying attention to what's happening and making those different moves, like the creation. Like there'll be a moment to consider shifting investments this week as we round out the week with the moon going through Scorpio, but that's not the leading theme. That's just like a transitory thing. So hope this helps. I'll pull a few cards for this week. Again, those links will be down below if you want a reading or to check out that ebook. And of course, for those creatives, entrepreneurs, artist types, you want guidance to heal and get unstuck and to create the plan forward, and we'll look at like what's going on with your chart to get through these times and to thrive. That link is down below for a reading, but also for the other tools that I bring to the party for the more intuitive shamanic coaching work. Speaking of shamanism, I did an ayahuasca ceremony this weekend. It was my 4th ceremony round that I've done in my life. It had been a while. I hadn't done one since 2020, actually. Took a break for a bit, so went deep. A lot of purging, but a lot of beautiful things coming from it. So let's see what we got card-wise. And just remember too, Venus on Saturn this week, because that was a reminder too for my ayahuasca. It's like responsibility's got to come first spiritually, you know. What we're putting out there. It's just, you know, those gentle reminders. And sometimes it can be rough too. It depends. It really depends how hard we are on ourselves, because Saturn is like always like the hard ass. And so on Venus, it's like the things in your reality, the approaches, the physical things, it depends on your subconscious, but it's also like not being too soft on the self, that we're not like getting it and being like, no, this is real. Like we really do have to like look at what are the changes that we're making. Well, Ace of Wands reversed, that sucks, you know, because it could feel like a loss of passion, you know, burnout, like, gosh, you know, what do we do? How do we sustain the energy in the tank? It's like Mars is still in its post-shadow. Venus, you know, can wear down, especially the feminine side of our energies, man or women, because it's, you know, stationary direct, but it'll still be moving slow. And I think a lot of it it's just the clarity of the mind, which Mercury being in Pisces, I think this is where we got to be like, hey, like don't trip out, like just stay focused, use the benefits of Jupiter in Gemini, use this full moon in Libra. Like these are all these air signs of like, hey, like don't let the ego, the mind, like play this funky town energy with it and create funky town in your own personal life just because it's putting some exciting spin on it because something is, maybe in the media or the world or something a person said tripping out. It's like, just like take care of business and see the way forward, even if the passion's not there. And we got the Hangman card. So remember all the Pisces energy, how this energy is flowing. That's what I've been saying. It's like we still need moments like for pause, for reflection of understanding like where we're going. And so the moving fast or moving slow this week, and the things that the way they're approaching it, it's not so much the speed of things, it's more so just like simple, like pause and like see like, am I going to that weird Pisces dead end, or am I like seeing where the world is moving and how my personal reality fits into that? So I think it's going to be a simple, stable week if we allow it to be, but we can't get tripped out in our own sensationalism and the sensationalism of the world, and just see that it can be a positive thing if we start to kind of adapt to the things that we're doing. So I'm definitely going to be chilling with, putting these cards and this astrology into my life and the AI stuff and the healing and the approaches and all of it. So what kind of astrologer would I be if I didn't practice what I brought to the table, right? So I appreciate you all. Reach out if you need a reading. Reach out if there's something that you're curious about in terms of my services. Happy to support. See you next time.